भारत और कनाडा के बीच के संबंध अपने सबसे बुरे दौर में हैं। इसके पीछे की वजह भी आप जानते ही होंगे। बहुत ज्यादा फर्क भारत पर तो नहीं पड़ने वाला, लेकिन हाँ, बहुत जल्द ट्रूडो को अपनी गलती का एहसास होगा और तब दुनिया भारत की ताकत देखेगी। खैर, अब हम आपको एक डॉक्यूमेंट्री दिखाने जा रहे हैं। एनएमएफ न्यूज इस वीडियो में दिखाए गए किसी भी बयान की पुष्टि नहीं करता, क्योंकि ये उन भारतीय बच्चों के बयान पर आधारित है जिन्होंने आप बीती सबको बताई। देखिए ये फुल डॉक्यूमेंट्री। और अगर आप भी अपने बच्चों को पढ़ाई के लिए कनाडा भेजना चाह रहे हैं तो एक बार इसे ध्यान से जरूर देखिएगा।
For a long time, Indians have viewed Western countries as the ideal destination for their higher education and employment, and Canada has secured a prominent position among such nations experiencing a significant influx of Indian immigrants. Since 2013,
After my research, what I could see was from the online marketing schemes, right? I saw Cape Breton from what the CBU website shows itself to be, that there is lots of healthcare opportunities here and that this is a very beautiful island. There's a short video you can see particularly on the website. It shows the beauty of the island, and it talks a bit about the success stories of a few students here. Those are the reasons why I chose Cape Breton for my immigration process, and this is where I wanted to come and immigrate and settle down in. Mind you, I wanted to settle down in Cape Breton.
when a student thinks about immigrating to a foreign country for their education, they not only put in the hard yards to qualifying the toughest exams, but they also bear the burden of investing huge sums of money, time, effort, and aspirations. And these aren't just of an individual, but often of their family, friends, and sometimes a whole community who collectively affect and are affected by the decision. It is imperative for students to do their due diligence and intensive research.
I was looking for more options when it comes to culinary management, and one of my relatives happened to mention that I should check out the courses in Canada as well, for the simple reason which was the ease of living here. Now at this point I knew a few people who had moved to Canada a couple years ago. So when it comes to deciding which colleges I'll apply to, one of the key factors and one of the contributing factors for me was the fee structure, because I had to finish my course in a certain amount and I could not really go over that amount because I had taken a loan from the bank. So which was the reason that I took admission in Georgian College in Barrie. Now the reality of where you are and how far away from home you are hits once you get here. Once I deboarded that plane and once I got out, the reality of the fact that I was on a foreign soil 15,000 kilometers away from home, from my people, from the life that I was living, just sort of hit me very hard.
But even that can fall short and leave you unprepared for what you may have to face once you deboard your 15-hour flight to a place alien to you.
Only after I landed here, I got to know about the realities of this particular economy. Because what they showcased on the internet, on the promotional video, was something completely different.
Yet, the glaring question remains. Why is Canada highly preferred by Indians? What is so alluring about Canada that makes Indians flock to the country for their higher education? Finding an answer to these mammoth-looking questions is no rocket science. All you have to do is conduct a basic web search. Study in Canada from India. And out of the 891 million search results, you will find almost all websites painting a bright picture of the country, effectively selling the dream of a better and promising life, the Canadian experience. The marvelous depiction of its flourishing economy, hassle-free access to healthcare, modern and swanky accommodation facilities, among others, make students perceive life in Canada to be like a gentle drizzle in their life of scorching summer afternoons. This makes the students fall victim to the classic framing effect. The ground reality is strikingly different. Take, for example, housing in Canada. Sorry, let me rephrase it, the housing crisis in Canada.
Now, because I was new, I was obviously looking for affordable options that were cheap, and I just had 7 days before my semester commenced for me to look for a place to live. So I naturally looked for shared accommodations and I looked for basements because those are cheap. Now, I had never lived in a basement before this. Neither had I lived in a shared accommodation with different people, and living with 5 people obviously creates some ruckus in terms of hygiene. We just had one small kitchen and we just had one bathroom between the 6 of us, which was obviously a very big challenge because we all had our part-time jobs, we were going to college full-time, and it was not easy to maintain our schedules with these many amenities, not enough sunlight, just one small living room.
When I landed here, I got to know that there is a big housing crisis that's going on. When you come all the way from your home country, that is one of the biggest shocks that you get. You know, your resources are limited here, that you only have very few housing options. We try to just make our work through staying in like 6 to 7 people in one single apartment, which is very not the best situation that you land up in. The housing crisis was already existing here, but what happened last year was that there was a very big influx of students, from 500 students in the summer semester to 3,000 in the fall intake. When I say fall, I mean the September intake. So suddenly there was like a bigger housing crisis than ever. But somehow I tried to get one house. और मेरे को एक घर मिला जिसमें मैं 4 महीने के लिए रह रही थी. तो जब स्टूडेंट्स साथ में रहने लगते हैं तो काफ़ी फ्रस्ट्रेशंस उठने लगते हैं स्टूडेंट्स के अमंगस्ट. तो वो सारी प्रॉब्लम्स होने लगी. क्लीनलीनेस की प्रॉब्लम होती है कि साफ सफाई नहीं रख रहे हैं. यहाँ पर कैनेडियन लैंडलॉर्ड्स हमसे बहुत परेशान हो जाते हैं. एंड देयर इज ऑल्सो कल्चरल डिफरेंस, राइट. तो फिर मैंने 4 महीने बाद आई हैड टू चेंज माई हाउस. मतलब वो मेरा आइडियल सिचुएशन नहीं था, बट बिकॉज ये सब प्रॉब्लम्स होने लगे जो सारे दूसरे बच्चों के साथ भी होते हैं. जब मैंने यहाँ पर आकर देखा तो यही हमारे काउच कॉन्वर्सेशंस होते हैं कि ये प्रॉब्लम्स हो रहे हैं हाउसेज में. तो घर बदलने का जो स्ट्रेस आता है हाउसिंग क्राइसिस का, लाइक आई सेड, दैट इज लाइक वेरी मैसिव ऑन योर मेंटल हेल्थ. दैट इम्पैक्ट्स यू वेरी मैसिवली कि घर फिर बदलना पड़ रहा है. एंड ऑल दिस वाइल यूर ट्राइंग टू स्टडी, स्कोर वेल इन योर स्कूल. तो ये मतलब बहुत बड़ा कल्चर शॉक था मेरे लिए, जो मुझे ऑनलाइन नहीं दिखा इंटरनेट में.
In 2022, the rental market in Canada saw the lowest vacancy rate for rental apartments since 2001. Approximately only 1.9% of apartments across Canada were unoccupied in 2022, down from 3.2% the previous year. Due to an increasing population density, the demand for rental accommodations is at an all-time high in major centers across Canada, outpacing the supply by a great margin. Simply put, housing in Canada is failing to match the increased demand generated by the growing population and the country's levels of immigration, creating a knock-on effect on availability and affordability of housing for many international students. There has also been a significant surge in the growth rate of the average rent for purpose-built two-bedroom apartments, soaring from 3% to 5.6% over the past 12 months. This new annual high is well above the 1990 to 2022 average of 2.8%. The average rent in Canada has increased by 9.6% in April 2023 from April 2022. A steep rise. A student who may have paid $1,827 in rent in April 2022 paid $2,004 in April 2023 for the same property. Even after being forced to pay hefty rent, students are unable to find proper places to live. As a result, the students turn to co-renting rooms and apartments that are usually poorly lit or ventilated, stuffing them with more people that they can accommodate. These result in deteriorated living standards and many subsequent mental health issues. According to data from Canada Mortgage and Housing Corporation, if current rates of new construction continue, the housing stock of Canada will increase by 2.3 million units between 2021 and 2030, reaching close to 19 million housing units by 2030. To restore affordability, the country will need an additional 3.5 million units. It means that the housing stock would need to climb over to 22 million housing units by 2030 to achieve affordability for people living in Canada. The challenges of the housing sector in Canada are obvious. Instead, aspiring youngsters are made to see an untrue picture of Canada's exquisite housing on the internet through vibrant and colorful imagery. There is another devil hiding in plain sight that holds a significant influence on the opportunities and aspirations of a foreign individual trying to make it in Canada. It has a telling say not only on housing and its crisis, but also on healthcare and its accessibility to such students. Did you know that one may have to wait for a considerably long time to get an appointment with a doctor?
Canada sells its healthcare very, very widely, online and everywhere. Like care बहुत अच्छा है यहाँ पर, and healthcare facilities बहुत अच्छे हैं. More than anything, free healthcare है, is what their selling point here is in Canada. Let me just give you a few examples of when it comes to the healthcare here in Canada and the healthcare in India. So basically there was a time when I was burnt in India. First degree burn हुआ था, छोटा सा silencer cyst, and I was studying in Manipal at that time. So I was instantly treated there within the next half an hour. To draw a parallel and a comparison between कि Canada में मेरे एक friend को burn हो गया था, एंड बिकॉज यहाँ पर हेल्थ केयर जो वो सेल करते हैं, बट यहाँ पर इतनी ज्यादा स्टाफ शॉर्टेज है हेल्थ केयर की कनाडा में कि उसको 5 से 6 घंटे सिर्फ वेटिंग रूम में बैठे रहना पड़ा था टू गेट टू इवन बी लुक्ड एट. तो उतनी देर में तो क्या से क्या हो सकता है, इवन वी नो. मेरे को खुद नी इशू हो गई थी, सो मेरे को एक एक्सरे चाहिए था उसके लिए. And X-ray is like something that's not an emergency, right? It's not a case of emergency X-ray. तो आपको जो आपका नॉन इमरजेंसी केसेस होते हैं, इसको नॉन इमरजेंसी केसेस कहते हैं, इसमें आपको 4 से 5 महीने का वेट टाइम, रेगुलर वेट टाइम है. तो इसकी वजह से मुझे इंडिया फ्लाई डाउन करना पड़ा था ताकि मैं अपना ट्रीटमेंट करवा पाऊं.
Many painful injuries are classified as non-critical according to the Canadian healthcare system, leading to delayed attention to the injured, making them endure it longer unreasonably. Is free and efficient healthcare just a facade? Or is a system not equipped enough to handle the influx? This can be a very anxious, stressful, and mentally draining experience for young adults who's miles away alone from home. Nothing short of an ordeal. Indian students arriving in Canada also have to tackle drastically different climates and environments offered by Canada. These changes can affect both their physical and mental well-being. Canada has very cold winters and short, cool summers. In general, Most of Canada is covered in snow during the winter months, and on average, 65% of Canadian land area remains snow covered for more than half a year. It can get difficult for Indians to deal with long cold winters and limited to no exposure to warm, sunlit days for 4 to 5 long months.
Now, in a basement, there's not enough sunlight. There's just 1 or 2 sources of sunlight, small windows here and there. And I'm talking about the entire house, which is kitchen, the living room and our rooms. There were just probably 2 windows in all of these sections combined. And when the snow starts and the temperatures go as low as minus 40 degrees Celsius, it gets really difficult to survive because there are not a lot of sunny days. You pretty much don't see the sun at all. It's difficult to commute. If you're using public transport, vehicles get stuck and you have to commute on foot sometimes in very harsh conditions. I remember a time when I was coming back from work and there was a snowstorm. The buses were not running and I had to walk, and it was so cold that my eyelashes froze. It was a bizarre situation.
We detest Indian summers and their scorching heat, but long cold climates can be equally challenging.
Now during winters you are just locked in your room with nothing to do, nowhere to go, not enough sunlight, and this creates something called seasonal depression, which is a condition often overlooked, and I got to know about this once I landed here. I don't think there's any awareness about what this is and how harsh this is, especially in winters.
Canadian colleges, universities, and immigration consultants paint a glossy picture of opportunities in Canada that is partly true. But it has failed to highlight the challenges an international student may have to face in that country's current socio-economic circumstances.
Here, you would say that it's a very depressed economy for right now. There are not a lot of work opportunities. मेरे रिसर्च ने मुझे ये बताया था कि हेल्थ केयर अपॉर्चुनिटीज बहुत हैं कनाडा में, बट ओनली यहाँ पर आकर पता चलती है that there are not a lot of healthcare opportunities here as they try to paint a picture of what the reality here is. And as we all know, international students, कि हम इंडिया से जब बैठ के प्लानिंग करते हैं तो हम यही सोच कर आते हैं कि हम अपनी घर खर्च निकाल लेंगे अपने से, एटलीस्ट फर्स्ट ईयर हम मैनेज कर लेते हैं जैसे भी, बट सेकेंड ईयर की फिर हम ट्यूशन फी भी कमाने का सोच कर आते हैं, राइट?
While international students hope to find internships and part-time jobs that can help them to pay off their student debts in time, reality may tell a different tale and gets more difficult for atypical courses.
So I chose culinary management because I wanted to get into the food industry, but I faced severe difficulties in finding a job in my field in Barrie because it's a very small town and it does not really have a lot of tourist attractions, a lot of restaurants or hotels, and this was something that was never conveyed to me while I was taking my admission, nor was it conveyed at any given point by the college authorities during the course. And when I had to look for my internship, I had to look for it myself because there are no placement cell systems like we have in India. So for my internship, I just decided to work at Boston Pizza, where I worked part-time. So this was a minimum wage job, so I got paid $14 an hour, it makes very difficult, sustenance very difficult with such a low wage. And I worked 12-hour shifts for 4 months, which just broke me beyond exhaustion. I was toiled physically and mentally, and I just didn't know what I was doing. I was just in this cycle where I woke up every day, went to work and came back, and that's all that life was.
These situations force students to take low-paying jobs that they may be often overqualified for, just to be able to sustain their life in a foreign country. Since job opportunities in Canada are scarce, students are forced to explore remote work jobs from other countries.
So I was looking very actively for a part-time job because I had to earn my second year tuition fee. So then after a lot of tries and hit and trial, I landed with a job which was like a work from home job, which was not situated here in Sydney. क्योंकि Sydney, Nova Scotia में तो मुझे job मिली ही नहीं. by hook or by crook after all the efforts that I put in. So that was a call center job that I landed with once I got here, which was paying my bills, which was just doing the job of paying my bills. Matlab, there were not a lot of skills or not a lot of skills that I could learn from that job.
Did you know that the average fee an international student pays while pursuing a postgraduate course in Canada is around $17,000?
My fees were around $8,000 to $9,000 per semester, which is around $1,500 to $2,000 if you're a domestic student. So the gap between fees of an international student and a domestic student is wide, it's huge, and it's highly unfair.
This is also significantly higher than what a Canadian student pays.
Since second semester my classes were online, so I pretty much paid for doing something that I could have done from back home, because I did 2-3 of my semesters online. You basically pay triple the fees for being an international student. So you are not just paying for your education, but you're paying for living here. You're paying for the entire Canadian experience.
Based on the data, Indian students contribute a whopping $8 billion in estimation to Canada's economy through tuition fees alone, and yet receive minimal support from these institutions to navigate these challenges. Year 2023. The recent case of 700 Indian students facing deportation threats over fake admission letters has left people in shock. It is interesting how these students were allowed admission into the country and institutions in the first place, and for over 2 years they strived hard to make a life there. They now are at the risk of losing everything: their money, time, effort, and aspirations. Who is at fault? Who is to be blamed? Is it a nexus or a silent cooperation between the Canadian institutions and the consulting agencies? It is the Canadian Immigration Office that trailed behind in their due diligence.
फिर आप देखते हो कि आपकी यूनिवर्सिटी में तो सारे स्टूडेंट्स इंडियन स्टूडेंट्स ही बैठे हैं, सारे के सारे, मतलब, और फिर ये क्या कर देते हैं, हमें एज अ कम्युनिटी यहाँ पर, मतलब हमें एज अ कम्युनिटी साइड अलग करके रख देते हैं. फॉर एग्जाम्पल, लेट मी गिव यू एन एग्जाम्पल ऑफ व्हाट आई एम सेइंग. सो दे मेक अस स्टडी एट द Cineplex theater. We attend our classes in the movie halls, movie theater यहाँ पर. Because कि यहाँ पर जो यूनिवर्सिटी ने इतना बड़ा इन्फ्लक्स ले लिया, उनके पास जगह ही नहीं है कि वो यूनिवर्सिटी में हम अकोमोडेट करे. तो ये सारी चीजें भी काफी शॉकिंग होती है जब यहाँ पर आकर पता चलती है, क्योंकि आप तो एडुकेशन लेने आए हो यहाँ पर, राइट? What I can say is कि एडुकेशन के नाम पर फसाड चल रहा है यहाँ पर थोड़ा, और ये सिर्फ आने के बाद पता चलता है, क्योंकि इंडिया से बैठकर जब आप रिसर्च कर रहे होते हो तो कुछ और दिखता है. इट जस्ट लुक्स लाइक समथिंग कंप्लीटली डिफरेंट.
Is this what the students are paying lakhs of rupees for? To not even be provided a proper classroom to study?